Welcome back to the $2 Film Club. Today we are back fresh from seeing The Mandalorian Grogu, and we have some thoughts. I know Ryan's raring to go and shit all over this movie. But yeah, The Mandalorian Grogu just came out, and it's the first Star Wars movie to be released theatrically in 7 years. So it's, 2019 Rise of Skywalker. That was the last Star Wars movie we got. And it's safe to say that Star Wars has been going through some highs and lows, let's say, in the new Disney Plus era. But one of the biggest standouts was the Mandalorian show. Obviously, the first two seasons were really well received. Season 3 was not as much. And then you've got all the spin-offs with like the Book of Boba Fett and Ahsoka, and some more standalone stuff with Andor and Skeleton Crew. But yeah, so we kind of got a lot to talk about.
Quick question: Do we really consider the Book of Boba Fett just not Mandalorian and the Mandalorian like 3.5? Because
Not all of it. It's two episodes.
There's more story in those two episodes than anything they do for Boba Fett himself in that show. Yeah, a lot of my issues with modern Star Wars kind of derives back from the Book of Boba Fett and the fact that they put a far more meaningful story for Grogu and the Mandalorian in that show than the actual title character. And I think that kind of goes for like a lot of the Disney Plus era Star Wars. A lot of it just feels really jarringly confusing at kind of the choices that they've been taking with what they want to put out there. I know a lot of people love Andor, but like now it kind of seems like people are putting Andor in its own like little cubby away from the rest of the Star Wars projects because of how good and different it felt from everything else. And then you're kind of stuck with like the Clone Wars shows with like Ahsoka, The Bad Batch, Mandalorian and Grogu, Mandalorian. I'm trying to think of like all of them off the top of my head.
I mean, I wouldn't count most of those as Clone Wars because Ahsoka is more like a spin-off of The Mandalorian.
But my point is all these characters,
the animated stuff.
Like, yeah, the animated
Darth
stuff.
Maul that just came out. Tales of the Jedi.
But I'm just like including those characters that were introduced from that, and kind of in part because of Dave Filoni's kind of influence on that. And I said, dude, I'll never forget what I said to you after getting out of The Mandalorian and Grogu. And that's simply, I understand why Kathleen Kennedy left now. Because like that's how I felt coming out of this movie. And this is coming from someone who doesn't hold like Star Wars and like the original trilogy up to like this amazing pedestal. Like I agree. It does many wonders for film and cinema. But like I'm not going to sit here and like fucking jerk myself off over it like a lot of people. You know what I mean?
You should.
I probably shouldn't, seeing how it's like turning out.
Obviously, you and I have talked long on end about how the Filoniverse is not for you. I don't know. I think there's definitely issues. Like going back to the Book of Boba Fett, I think that show is definitely not the best that we've gotten. It didn't bug me as much though as everyone else. But it is weird how the best episodes in that show are the ones that are entirely centered around the Mandalorian, and it is a really odd choice to place so much of the progression of his and Grogu's story in the spin-off show and not another season or even the movie, for example. Because that's one of the issues that I had with that movie is that it doesn't progress the story in like really any way. But I mean, I think for the most part, The Mandalorian has pretty much stood taller, I guess, among some of the other Star Wars endeavors. Andor, I do agree that deserves to be in its own little, pocket dimension or whatever. Because it is completely different from any other Star Wars project, and it is that good. But that's one of the few examples of things that weren't, headed by Filoni and Jon Favreau.
This is kind of my problem with The Mandalorian as a TV show is not that it's bad or anything, but those first two seasons, which is the ones that like people put in high regard, came out in 2019 and 2020. That's insane. And the fact that 6 years later we got a movie, and then in between that we got like a season and 2 episodes of a whole nother subplot that they start teasing in the Book of Boba Fett. For me, it feels like they just didn't capitalize at the right time for The Mandalorian and Grogu, because I think I said this to you when we were walking out, is in the theater, it didn't feel like people felt the same way towards both Mando and Grogu coming out of it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, obviously, you and me talked about it before. It was kind of a weird choice to make The Mandalorian and Grogu the big return to theaters, especially because of the way season 3 like picks up and ends, if that makes sense. Because I know you haven't seen it, but for those who have, obviously a lot of that has to do with, you know, the season 2 cliffhanger and like the retaking of Mandalore and all that stuff, and wrapping up all the Moff Gideon stuff. And that to me feels like the where you could make. And honestly, to be fair, I think season 3 of The Mandalorian would be much better as a movie than a television show, which is the exact opposite of how I feel about the movie that we got. And I just think there's so much more hype going into that based on like all the story threads that the movie really doesn't have, because it's picking up in a point in the story where nothing much is going on. And I think that would have been really cool. Like the ending, the last two or three episodes of The Mandalorian season 3 are really good, and I think that would have looked great on a big, you know, cinema screen or whatever. And I understand, like from a logistical or whatever terms, how Disney was like, listen, you know, we want to get Star Wars back in theaters, and we need like the right project, and they looked at probably their biggest
character.
Yeah, sort of. Like the Mandalorian and Grogu on their own are essentially like a sub brand of like the Star Wars universe. And they were like, hey, let's just take season 4 of The Mandalorian, cut it to 2 hours and 15 minutes, and shove it in theaters, and people will go see it because they love Baby Yoda and whatnot. But that's just kind of annoying, because the only other movie that we have coming up, and at least confirmed coming up, is that Starfighter movie with Ryan Gosling, and I don't really think too many people are, you know, going to be racing to go see that.
I see what you did there.
Because it's just, you know, it's all a standalone thing, and I'm not saying that standalone movies can't work. And to be honest, having seen The Mandalorian and Grogu, I kind of wish we did get a standalone movie. But I can see how the last, like from Disney's perspective, how they were a little too hesitant to do that, because the last couple of standalone Star Wars movies that they didn't do as well, if that makes sense.
Well, it's just really confusing to me when you know that they had already written a season 4 for the show right when the acting strike started, and then that's when there's like, you know what, we can't really shoot this right now, so let's just figure out a way to turn The Mandalorian and Grogu into a film. And the thing that confuses me even more is just through a lot of their interviews for this movie, they had mentioned multiple times that anything in this film wasn't in season 4's plans.
Yeah, that's bullshit.
That it's either bullshit or just really stupid, and both of them are both. Like, dude, that's what frustrates me, is because how do you have a fucking entire outline for an entire season, and you give us a 2+ hour film with absolutely no story beats, really minimal action,
beats. Not They're really, just vaguely tied together.
There's really no story beats in this movie.
No, I can list the story beats to you, but it would be like me summarizing the plot of a video game.
Dude, don't do video games like that.
But like, it kind of feels like that though, right? Like, cause like you know, it's just a bunch of side quests cobbled together with, you know, NPCs walking around and telling you the plot.
And you keep going back to like the home base to like give your contract. Like, to me, that's not very plot driven. There's no character story arcs. I'm not even just talking about Mandalorian and Grogu. No character in this movie gets a time to shine. And when Mando and Grogu kind of both get their own individual parts, they waste it. The whole Grogu section for 15, 20 minutes when Mando's unconscious, it's bewildering to me how they thought just watching Grogu fucking fishing and sitting there was a good idea.
See, that's where I refuse to believe that none of this stuff was originally written for season 4, because it feels like it is. That sounds like is a solid separate episode of The Mandalorian season 4, where we have to watch Grogu on his own, but it doesn't make sense or fit in the context and format of a feature-length movie. And that's the way that the movie is structured. You've got the episode where the Mandalorian goes to find Rada the Hutt and they escape. You have the episode where he captures Coin and lets Rada go free or whatever. You've got the episode where he gets captured and Baby Yoda has to go rescue him and whatnot. And then you have the episode where Grogu is on his own in the wilderness, and then you have the final episode where he goes and he fights the twins, the Hutt twins, and it has the structure of a season of television. So don't sit there and tell me that you didn't originally plan to put this in the television show, because it reads like it does, and it sounds like it would be better as a TV show than a 2-hour movie.
Well, it doesn't help the fact for the pacing for me that things just happen to happen when they need to happen.
Exactly.
And a lot of the in-between is just kind of what you were going off of with the video game reference, is a bunch of NPCs just walking around until you walk over this one thing that initiates the game to proceed with what the NPCs are supposed to do.
See, that's the other thing that drives me up the wall, is that the other reason I call them NPCs is not only because their conversations are boring and only serve to explain the plot either to the audience or to Din Djarin, but also they always show up at exactly the right time when the Mandalorian needs help, and that's where it also reminds me of a video game, because so much of a video game is you on your own and exploring and doing your own stuff, and then every once in a while one of the NPC characters will come along and they'll help you in a cutscene or something. All of the action set pieces and dialogue moments felt like cutscenes.
And I think part of that doesn't help is the one thing I was kind of hoping for, now that it's at least a film, is they could pay Pedro Pascal to be there. And he's there for... Bro, he's faceless without the he's without the mask more in the TV show somehow than he is in this movie.
I mean...
And I get it for the story, but there's so many ways they can go about writing it with him having the mask off and still us seeing him. That's what I appreciated in, I think it was the first season, the episode that Bryce Dallas Howard directed, where he takes off the mask, but then they don't show you his face. And I kind of like that whole keeping it a mystery for the audience, but he doesn't let anyone else see, which is fine. But why can't we see him in those moments to help us get more of a connection to Din? Oh my God. Because right now it's starting to feel like between a guy in a mask and a baby puppet, they're really starting to lose whatever that chemistry was in the beginning. And I don't know if that's because there is little to no actual Pedro in this movie. And I'm not even just talking about his face. It feels like they gave him very strict guidelines on his lines of dialogue. He never feels like he has much of a sentence to say. He always says 1 or 2 words, or he's just kind of being good Yoda. Good Yoda.
That goes back to the video game shit too. He barely talks unless he has some small thing to say, and it sounds like something you'd say in passing as you pass another villager or something along the way. But I don't know. I understand what you're saying. I personally didn't want to see too much of Pedro's face, just because I know that was like a big issue in season 3 of The Mandalorian, where like he had to earn the right to like, you know, be a Mandalorian again in the eyes of his coven or whatever.
See,
But
I'd agree,
I understand.
but like all of the story arcs from those first 3 seasons feel so irrelevant to this movie, and that's
Yeah.
what kind of goes back at like what you're saying and be like, well, yeah, but this movie clearly doesn't care about any of that.
Yeah, that's fair. And it is annoying that you sometimes you kind of can't see much of a performance. And I think the other thing too is that they don't give him anyone interesting to interact with.
That's
Like
true.
the seasons of The Mandalorian have him interacting with, you know, Katie Sackhoff's Bo-Katan, and you know, Boba Fett and Cobb Van. Like there's characters, like actual characters that he's interacting with, and the interactions are interesting. And then in this one, it's just Sigourney Weaver, you know, reading a fucking photo card or whatever to him, and then you've got there's the other thing is that so much of it is CGI or like a puppet or something. So those are the only like 2 characters that like are real people that are talking to each other, and then the rest of the time it's, you know, Zeb from Rebels, or it's Rada the Hutt, or you know, it's the bounty hunter or whatever. Like there's clearly no interaction going on, like tangible interaction.
I guess this is like a good time to bring up just like the Hut part of this story, and I'm not just talking about Rada, but the twins as well. I forgot both their names. Thank God.
They just call them the twins. So.
Okay, that's what I thought.
I mean, I'm sure they have names and whatnot, but throughout the movie, I only remember them referring to them as the twins.
That's what I thought. And anytime he'd talk to the twins, I would just laugh because it feels like a bad cutscene I'm watching the entire time.
Yeah.
The 2 of them literally just wrapped up with one another, kind of laughing at him. And I had to go back to the original trilogy to like make sure I wasn't seeing things. But why did they make the Hutts, all of them, speak English in this movie with bad synth voices?
Oh.
Like they speak a little like Jabba in the original trilogy. Like he'll say
They don't
a
speak
few
a lot of
words.
Huttese.
He speaks a lot of Huttese, but he'll throw in some like regular English words in between there to like help the viewer get an idea of what he's talking about. But in this movie, dude, I don't know what the fucking point of getting Jeremy Allen White for Rada the Hutt was when you give him, you can't hear his voice, and he gives one of the most like generic voice performances of all time. And I'm not even saying that as a diss to Jeremy Allen White, because I think he's a fantastic actor. But I also saw an interview with him about how he got on to this project. Have you seen that at all?
I haven't seen an interview, but I know what you're talking about. It's because him and Jon Favreau connected over their like chef stuff or whatever.
Yeah, and he wanted to be in the film, and he was just like, I have a little, or not Filoni, Favreau's like, I have a little role for you, and it was Rada the Hutt, and then he never saw a script, and then like a year went by, he was saying, all of a sudden he was in the entire thing, and he's just like, I thought I was just going to give a few voice dialogue lines, and you can clearly see that in this, and
Yeah,
it's
you can tell
frustrating.
he's kind of uncomfortable being a voice actor, and I don't know his background if he's ever done voice acting before.
I don't think so.
But there's no character to it, you know what I mean? Like, and again, I get that he's not working with much either in terms of writing, because literally all he does, and again, going back to the NPC thing, every time Mando goes to talk to him, he says the same fucking thing in rotation. I'm not my father. Do you know what it's like being being Jabba the Hutt's son? Like, Jesus fucking Christ, dude, shut the fuck up. There's 2 hours and 15 minutes in this movie, and at least 20% of it is him just saying the same fucking dialogue.
Dude, literally. And I swear to God, if I ever hear about Jabba the Hutt again that's not from Jabba the Hutt, I might throw myself off of a building. The Hutts are almost the worst part of this movie, and they're supposed to be the main antagonist.
My thing is that, you know, I think that one of and this is where you can really tell that there's 3 writers on this movie, because clearly there's 3 different story arcs going on at the same time, and only one of them is like vaguely interesting, which is I like the setup going into like the climax of the movie where Mando gets captured and they take off his mask, and now he's like, oh, I have to kill them in order to retain my honor or whatever. My pride as a Mandalorian. Like, that stuff's kind of cool. And watching, Grogu get more characterization by himself, where he kind of has to, like, take the reins and whatnot, that's cool. But it's all built on this really stupid shit that happens in the beginning of the movie with, Rada the Hutt and all that stupid shit.
All I know is when I saw Martin Scorsese as the third build in this movie, I knew I was in for a long movie. The dude literally has 2 scenes and then never pops back up again.
He's probably given the best performance in this movie, though.
Which is sad as shit.
Yeah.
And, like, I just don't... They really found a way to make the Mandalorian a fucking idiot in this movie, I feel, too. Like, everything he does doesn't seem to be with the thought process of what could happen. Like, the fact that he just is straight up, like, saying everything to Rada and just acts like that's going to get him out or thinks it's going to get him out. I'm just like, dude.
Plot convenience.
Well, dude, that's everything in this movie. Everything just turns into one plot convenience because they don't know how to make the story naturally flow, which feels really weird because I said this to you. I think the intro to the film is by far the best part, and it's because it's just action and no dialogue, Yeah. It's really sad because I just really wish there was more action like the introduction of the Mandalorian in this film, just due to the fact that I like that hand-to-hand, like, actual fighting shit, but then that just quickly gets lost, and then he just turns into a flying jet CGI character, throwing, like, his fucking hook around to choke Rada the Hutt, or just shooting his blaster to do something.
Oh, God, like, that whole fucking gladiator scene is dumb.
Dude, are you talking about with the 2 robots, or when he goes into the water that he magically starts
No, the gladiator scene. The water scene is dumb, too. But
oh, yeah, gladiator, sorry. Yeah,
we'll get to the water scene. The gladiator scene, I thought was whatever. Again, it's just a bunch of, like, CGI nothingness happening. And
yeah, there's no emotional weight or stakes to anything in this because I feel like as the viewer, like, when, not Jabba, Jesus Christ, but when the Mandalorian, like, gets bit or whatever it was in his side and he starts getting poisoned, you knew he was going to make it out. You didn't know how, but you're like, he'll be fine. They're never going to kill fucking Grogu. Like,
honestly, I thought it would have been more interesting if they killed the man. I know I was joking to you about
agree.
it, but
No, I
do
agree.
think it would have been the more interesting choice to take is that fucking Din Djarin dies and Grogu has to, like, do everything on his own now. But obviously that wouldn't make for a really satisfying movie because there's, like, but at the time,
this is already not satisfying.
But at the point in which that happens, there's like 45 minutes left in the movie. So that is kind of something where I was like, okay, this is not gonna be how it goes. But
and then this, like, random ass, like, bounty hunter character shows up, which is like, he's slightly interesting when he comes and takes Mando, but, like, that, bro, I don't know how Mando just turns himself into such a bitch when, like, the plot acts him.
Dude, I was so upset by the scene where they introduce Embo and they have their little, Mando gets captured, because I was already telling you this, that I didn't like Embo's inclusion because he adds nothing to the story. Like, it literally could have just been anyone else and nothing would change, like, plot wise. And
stake-wise, bro.
Yeah, well, see, that was the thing. Like, there's so little stakes going on throughout because nothing is really happening. Like, Grogu's captured during the gladiator scene, but Mandalorian rescues him, like, immediately. And I was kind of like, oh, that kind of sucks. I was, hoping to see more to that. And then, with him getting captured, like, halfway through the movie, I was expecting Grogu to be in more danger than he actually was, and I just think it would have been so much better if we actually saw Embo, like, beat the Mandalorian and not just, like,
electrocute him.
Yeah, electrocute him. Like, that was so lame because they build him up and him like, attacking them, and then Mandalorian runs out the door and he steps on, the net and it fucking electrocutes him. And then they leave immediately, and I was kind of just like, can I have like a fight scene or something? Because imagine if Embo had just been super brutal in capturing the Mandalorian. That alone would be enough for when they fight later for it to like mean anything. But also, I was just kind of wanting more of like a direct relationship between the two, since the movie was pitting them up against each other so much, especially in the climax, and I just didn't get that. And so the whole time I was watching it, I was like, I don't really care. Like, I know the Mandalorian's not going to lose, but I have no emotional stake in them fighting right now. Though the emotional stake that I did have in was him coming in and killing the twins, but he doesn't even get to do that because we forgot Rada needs to have a purpose in the story, so they have him beat the shit out of them.
And having Rada kind of be this focal point for between Mando and the twins feels really weird, because throughout the entire film, it's just kind of obvious that Mando doesn't care about Rada, but everyone else is kind of like coming to Rada's like aid and assistance. Like Rada and Grogu kind of form like a little bit of a connection together, but like Mando's so dissociated emotionally from who Rada is that if it doesn't feel rewarding when he does actually save him. And then going to the point you were saying, then Rada kills the twins, not even Mando. So it's just kind of like a double whammy of I don't care towards the end, on top of just wildly distractingly bad fight choreography. The fight between Mando and the two like soldier robots, dude, I could not have been more bored if Grogu put me to sleep. Like,
I get this, and this is where I kind of feels like a lot of the action set pieces are more like theme park ideas, and I don't know. I get like, to an 8-year-old, that's kind of cool. Like, oh, Mando and Grogu take down 2 giant robots. But when you're watching it and you're kind of just like, why is this happening? Because my problem is that it sets it up as like the end of the movie, or like the end of the conflict. Like, he beats the robots, he gains entrance into the room, and then he has that like he has a really cool entrance into the room too. He's like, oh, you saw my face, and now you're gonna die. Like, I thought that was really cool. And then, fucking the bounty hunter dude pops out again, and they fight, and then Grogu has to free Rada. I was just like, okay, this is going on for too long. Like, you can't have your cake and eat it too. Either make it the dumb giant robots, or make it the bounty hunter. Like, imagine if it was just the bounty hunter that was standing in between him and the door, and so the fight is about them like duking it out or whatever.
Well, that's
like,
what I was kind of assuming was going to happen when they introduced him.
Like, and then, you've got the Mandalorian fighting a CGI character, and then you've got Rada, who again is also CGI, but fighting 2 CGI characters. And then you've got the Grogu dealing with the CGI pet, that dog thing that Embo, right? Embo has, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just a whole mess of nothing going on.
Well, it just makes it worse, because once the pit they're standing over, not the Sarlacc pit. Why can't I remember it from the Return of the Jedi? The pit that like Luke falls into to fight the big monster.
Yeah.
Like that callback where he has the fight earlier in this film, that pit that the Hutts fall into. It's so funny watching them die and me feeling nothing, only to watch the bounty hunter character just mildly escape without like caring in the world. It just feels like, why are you guys trying to set up something here? Because I really don't want to see this character again. You guys didn't do him any service, and I'm pretty sure he's from the animated show. So
yeah, I don't know. It's you brought up Cad Bane when we got out of the theater too, and I'm just like,
I thought that's who he was, bro.
That's a good example of something that the Book of Boba Fett actually did correctly.
Oh, dude, it's bad though, because every time I think about that show, I think about that one line of dialogue that Boba Fett Cad Bane had with each other when they are in like the standoff, and Kid Bane's like, "Oh man, I wonder if you really have armor under there." And it's just like you look down and you're like, "Bro, this has been the same suit he's been wearing for years. Of course, there's fucking armor." And like, that's the thing is the dialogue in that show made none of the characters look cool. Especially Cad Bane, because I thought Cad Bane was a cool-ass character.
Yeah, he's pretty cool.
They should have used... I know he died in that show, but they should have fucking used him in here somehow. Would have been far more interesting.
I don't know. It's such a crazy, creative mishap.
Not even. Just like a creative... Like, it feels like they're just running into the same wall over and over again with the creativity with this film.
And they're trying to pretend as if it's like something that we want and we'll pay to see. Well,
who is this really for? Because for
know.
me, it doesn't feel like it is aimed towards the people that loved what the first 2 seasons were.
It's not.
But it doesn't feel like it's for anyone that they've set up between Boba Fett and season 3.
That's another thing where it feels like studio meddling, because it feels like Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau and who was the other guy who wrote this?
Some other asshole who worked on the Mandalorian show.
Noah Clore. It sounds like they were given a strict parameter of like, make this, simple enough for people who haven't seen it and make it fun as like a family outing. And it does feel like that. It's like, dialogue to explain the plot, followed by, a CGI action scene, to stave off children's boredom. And it just, the whole movie is like that. There's little to no connective tonal or stylistic tissue from The Mandalorian, the Disney Plus show, and this movie. Which is crazy because it's got the same people involved in it.
Yeah, that's what makes me feel that the Mandalorian character is kind of like done to me as his own like standalone thing.
Yeah,
I feel like Mandalorian fits better now as not a background character, but just a supporting character.
Yeah.
And that I think that goes for Grogu too, because I don't get the point of just keeping Grogu's life a secret. And that's the part of not the Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett that I enjoyed, because they went into it, but not a lot. And I see a lot of people dogging on the young Luke effect, where they like digitally replace the actor's face. But I thought it looked really good. Yeah, you don't remember him going to see Luke Grogu?
No, I do remember what you're saying, but it doesn't. That's the one where it looks. The end of season 2 of The Mandalorian is the one that looks like shit. The Book of Boba Fett looks good.
That's what I thought. People are always complaining about the way he looks in Book of Boba Fett, but I'm like, guys, it got better. Don't worry, please.
Like, in the Book of Boba Fett, it actually looks like him.
And, like, that's what I kind of wanted more from this movie, is to not tell us right out who Grogu is unless they wanted to, but, like, just something of helping us put together Grogu and Yoda's, like, connection, because there's an obvious connection there and they just keep refusing to go into it, and it's gotten to a point where it's really fucking annoying.
I don't know, it just, the whole time that we were watching up until it got to the point where Grogu was doing his own stuff, Grogu didn't really feel like a character. He felt like a pet, and
he hasn't felt like a character to me since Book of Boba Fett.
And that's the stuff that I was kind of annoyed by. Like, they're clearly trying to capitalize on the merchandising aspect of Grogu and not like the character aspect. And I will say we needed something like the stuff in the forest to happen. But that being said, they could have integrated it better into the plot of the movie.
Yeah, like, dude, if you're going to spend 20 minutes alone with Grogu, give us something to start attaching to outside of, oh my god, he's making Mando a little hut to protect him. Oh my god, he's just violently catching some fish to eat. Oh my god, he snuggles up to Mando because he's like, he can't do anything without him. Like, it was just a hot take or like a quick flash of all the cute Grogu things that Grogu's done in the first 3 seasons. And that I think that goes for like a lot of this film as a whole, is everything they do in this movie feels like a shittier version of something they'd already done. And none of it feels new. None of it.
Well, see, that's where I was telling you when I was talking to my family members, I'm like, the Mandalorian Grogu it's just more of stuff that we've already seen from the TV show. And that to me is the biggest sin that this movie commits, is that it doesn't do anything to effectively continue the story of the Mandalorian and Grogu. Like you were saying before, they don't have much of like a character arc, and so there ends up, by the time you get to the end, you're just like, what was the point of that? Like, what did that do for the characters? Nothing, because they don't change.
Yeah, they're the exact same people as they were from season 2.
Exactly.
That's why I think this movie just frustrates me so much, is because there's an opportunity to do something with the characters, but they so clearly didn't want to capitalize on it because the merchandise feels far more important than actually telling a story on these characters. And I think that's the biggest disservice of like not just this, but any big IP franchise. I'm just trying to think of one that has done it as egregious as The Mandalorian and Grogu.
In terms of what?
Like just selling their films, anything that they're in, just to sell a bunch of toys.
Oh, just sell a bunch of toys.
Like,
I don't think there is one that does it that like.
That's what I'm saying. It's egregious how upfront they are about not caring about these characters and only caring about how people view the cuteness of these characters. Because it's just really disappointing. At least knowing who the creatives are behind this. Because I know, like, I'm not the biggest Dave Filoni person. I know you are.
You're just a hater.
I'm a hater, yeah. But, dude, I respect the fuck out of Jon Favreau. And to see him attach himself to this and be the director and co-writer is blasphemy. Dude, go make fucking Chef 2.
I don't know. It kind of does feel like everyone involved is kind of getting tired of the whole Mandalorian gimmick.
They're only doing it to sell fucking merchandise.
Yeah, I do think it does feel like Sigourney Weaver came and got paid. Pedro Pascal came and got paid for 5 minutes of screen time.
Bro, Dave Filoni had more screen time in this movie than Pedro Pascal.
Okay, that's not true, but...
Okay, but it was a funny joke.
It was a funny joke, yes.
The amount of times I'm like, why am I seeing Dave Filoni in this, looking into the lens with this fucking giant-ass cowboy hat? Which is even more annoying. The guy clearly likes Westerns, and all of the posters lean to this being a Western, but it is so clearly nothing like a Western.
Yeah.
Which would have been cooler. It would have been far cooler.
I just think they needed to choose a concept. Like, if we're continuing off of the television show, then it needs to be about him working for the New Republic,
and not just being their hitman.
Yeah, or make it about the Hutt stuff and focus on that, or focus on Grogu having to deal with stuff. Like, they just needed to pick one, and there's too much going on for this one movie, and none of it makes any sense because none of it has anything to do with anything else.
Well, I was really excited when Mando gets like injured and incapacitated for a part of the movie.
Yeah, because you thought he was going to die.
Well, no, not that, but I thought they would actually like give Grogu a chance to shine and do something himself.
Yeah.
But it just goes back to like the same thing I was saying before. They just use the 20 minutes to sell merchandise. It pisses me. It genuinely pisses me off. I felt like I watched a 2-hour commercial for a bunch of fucking toys.
Literally, they introduce another NPC just to help him.
Dude, literally, and that's what annoys me, is they introduce these pieces that become relevant out of nowhere again, but they decide to not do anything with them. Like, why the fuck does this random NPC Lake character just be like, oh, he's cute, let me just help him with everything he needs. And this might not heal him. It's been too long. Yeah, like, what type of stakes are those, bro? And if I'm going to be honest, it took me a while to realize that Mando was still suffering from the poison because Baby Grogu had just healed him.
Mm.
And to me, like, that's bad writing. If you're gonna heal him, why not just take the poison out at that point? Like,
Yeah.
it feels weird to just be like, you know what? He just makes a Band-Aid over the skin and it heals itself. Like that's like not healing, bro.
I mean, I
pisses me
figured it wouldn't work because every time we've seen like the Force healing stuff, it's been to like heal physical damage. And
No, bro. Who in the Rise of Skywalker? Who got brought back to life because of it? Someone got brought back to life.
Oh, you know what? Yeah, that's a fair point. You mean when Rey was saved by Kylo?
Rey. I'm like, I can't remember which character
fair.
died.
That's
but
fair.
I remember them bringing the Force back.
No, yeah,
and
that's
so
fair.
It just feels really inconsistent with even the newer stuff. I hate to say 2019's newer stuff, but when you don't come out with anything interesting, you know, like I'd much rather watch The Rise of Skywalker over this tenfold, bro. Like I'm not gonna sit here and say The Rise of Skywalker doesn't have a lot of the same like story issues with things just kind of happening.
But, well, okay, I mean, yeah, things happen.
Things just randomly happen, and the characters find these pieces that just
they're all connected to the overarching plot, which is
what I'm saying.
What I'll say.
It's not as egregious as how this movie does it.
No,
And it looks way better from a color standpoint, a cinematography standpoint.
Yeah.
The acting is way better because there's actual fucking actors in the movie.
I think this movie is much more comparable to The Phantom Menace. It's boring. The story is just all over the place in terms of structure and narrative progression. And the characters are not very interesting.
I think this movie is a great point as to why Hollywood has a hard time when it comes to like these Marvel and DC franchises putting masks on people. And when they do, they wear them and then they take them right off. Is because you lose that connection. And it's different in a way that I don't think that the show had. And I
think the show works around the masks problem really effectively, and the movie just doesn't. There's no life behind the suit in this one for some reason.
And like I know everyone like Pedro Pascal, and like they gave a higher credit. The guys who do the actual the stunt work stuff is like I'm trying to say this without sounding like an asshole, but like. You guys are really just being here to stand still and not do much because a lot of the actual physical stuff feels like it's all just CG made, you know? And if they did do that, that's just a disservice to their work because I think in the show, they actually want you to care about Mando and like his physical capabilities, but in this movie, they just kind of go out the wind with that. He feels like a superhero in this movie.
Yeah, he kind of does.
Just replace him with a CG double and call it a day.
Sometimes they do replace him with a CGI double, and it's very
they
noticeable.
They do pretty often. But in this movie, like the only time I feel like a double is doing something is when they're just walking around, and to me, it's just like, okay, that's cool, I guess. You know, I don't know. This movie just frustrated the absolute ever living fuck out of me.
Yeah. Do you want to get into closing statements?
Yeah, I guess. I'm going on my letterbox to change the score down.
Oh, are you lowering it?
Yeah.
Honestly, I thought of doing the same, but
I'm just gonna.
I will say, I know we made a lot of fun of like the CGI today and when we talked about this movie last time, but while you're watching it didn't bug me as much. Like it's got spectacle. It just doesn't mean very much.
Or look very good.
I know. I'm saying it didn't look bad. Like none of it looked super bad, except for like some of the CGI interactions. Like when they're interacting with like real things, you can tell.
Dude, this is a $165 million film.
A lot of the space battles looked, pretty decent, and I just think it depends on like the way that it's shot. Like the way that the chase scene is shot looks bad. Like that's for sure. But I mean, to be fair though, for a movie that cost under $200 million, it could look worse. Okay, because we all know that
It can
unless
always
it's
look
got
worse.
because every movie that Disney has made in the last like 5 years that had a 200 million or more dollar budget looked far worse. So I'm just glad that it wasn't that level of bad from like a visual standpoint.
I'm looking up some of the budgets right now. Because how much was Han Solo made for? 275.
Oh yeah, that one was a lot.
Well, dude, that's got to be a lot because they reshot the entire fucking thing.
Well, they didn't reshoot it. They just
Did they? I thought they reshot it once they hired what's his name.
No,
Ron
I don't think
Howard.
I don't think they did a lot of reshoots. I could be wrong on that. Here, let me look it up real quick. But my understanding is that they did change directors, like, you know.
Dude, Rise of
halfway through, more
Skywalker
or
was
less.
275, the exact same. Like what?
Let
Last
us-
Jedi was 317. Like, yeah, I don't expect them to look as good, but I think this is when you look at your budget and then you start to dictate what you can and can't do, and it doesn't feel like they did very much of that because all of the Hutt planet stuff I thought looked really ugly. Like when the fighters came in and start blowing shit up, it looked like a typical dude. I've seen better current cut scenes than what that looked like in video games. And like that's my issue. You know, like I find it hard to believe. Office Mojo.
Okay, never mind. You're right.
Okay, so they did reshoot most
So
of it.
it says in March 2018, and they had been shooting since February 20th, 2017. By March 2018, after it was reported Howard had reshot around 70% of the film.
Dude, that's crazy.
It was
That's
announced that
crazy.
Lord and Miller would not challenge for director credit, instead agreed to executive producer credits.
So what? You could probably fucking notch out $60 million for that right there.
Probably.
So I'm not saying you can't compare it, but I feel like I've been seeing a lot of people online trying to compare the budget for this to Solo and the Rise of Skywalker.
I mean, I think that's a
Primarily
fair
Solo.
comparison. I think that's a fair comparison. Because it did cost way. It's their cheapest Star Wars movie by far.
But okay, so do you think this movie is going to make its money back in the theatrical run?
I think it possibly could, because it already made back its production budget at least.
I think it's going to
But
fall
whether or
off
not
hard
it's
in
going
the
to
second
profit,
weekend.
yeah, it's all up to the second weekend. Like, you know, I think for a Memorial Day release, it's pretty decent. I know people are harping on the fact that it's lower than even Solo, but again, Solo was much more expensive, and it needed much more money back in order to turn a profit.
Which is something they probably decided to take the L on because they knew that. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm just looking at the weekend box office for Mandalorian and Grogu. Each day went down a significant amount in percentage, from 30 million on Friday to 25.5 million on Saturday, 22.5 million on Sunday, and then 19 million on Monday. To me, that reads they're probably going to make 10 million over the second weekend because they don't have a 4-day weekend. And that's the thing too. This movie had a 4-day weekend to make a box office, and to see it make like just 160, I just don't think that's acceptable for a Star Wars film, especially when you're trying to like tell everyone this is our claim to fame back into the domain in terms of theatrical releases. I'm very curious to see what it does this second.
No, yeah, me too. It's all gonna depend on this next weekend. I honestly, I won't be shocked if it does well, but I also won't be shocked if it doesn't do well. Like, that's kind of where I am at this point. Like, to me, I feel like, you know, casual viewers might get more out of this than actual Star Wars fans, and so that's the part where I'm a little torn. Like, I think, you know, maybe some people it'll be enough for like the you know, the action set pieces and Baby Yoda being cute for it to draw enough of an audience to just get by. But yeah, I don't know.
They know their merch sales are going to go like through the fucking
Yeah,
roof
and
this
honestly, at
weekend.
that point, it might not even matter either because
Yeah, and honestly,
at that point, it might not even matter either because if
that's
they
why
get
it probably doesn't matter.
if they make enough on merchandising, then because the popcorn buckets that we
Or
were
like $100, bro.
they were like $55 at the theater we went to. So
The one with like the full Mando suit with Grogu on his back is like 110, $120.
damn.
That's ridiculous. I'm sorry. Like, no one should be paying that much for a fucking plastic popcorn bucket. I mean, I say this now when I plan to buy the bong one for Scream 6, but I think that
one's
fits
more
more in
worth it.
line. I think that's what I say. I think it's more worth it because they come in different sizes, and I guarantee you it's not going to be as expensive. Just because it's a bong and you're not making a character. Like there's some that I think are cool and worth it, like when they really go out to where it's less of a popcorn bucket and more of like a back wall piece. But yeah, let's get into our final like ratings because this is starting to annoy me. I want to think less about this movie already, but I've been thinking way too much after all of the online debacle. Like, dude, Obsession's been killing it this weekend. On its second weekend, it made more money than its first weekend. And that shouldn't be happening with the Star Wars film coming out.
That I will say that's fair. Like, Michael came out and it was doing, I think the only time it went down was like its second weekend, and then after that it kept like holding and it was making in like loads of cash.
Bro, Michael this weekend made like $30 million.
Yeah.
Like,
and yeah, Obsession is like a good example. Again, a lower budget, but it's still making a lot of money at the box office.
and I'm seeing a lot more photos of people sharing their theaters, far more packed. Like when I say packed, I mean like almost sold out for Obsession. And then you see like 5 people in an IMAX screening of Mando and Grogu.
Yeah.
And like to me, that's where the embarrassment should set in.
Oh wow, yeah. I mean, I think the funny thing is that it's making less money than the Mandalorian and Grogu would like each day, but it's been out longer and it's still making around this like the same average percentage of in ticket sales.
Which is exactly what you're looking for in as a studio.
Yeah, that's crazy. And for like a lot of it, it's like ranked number 1 too.
Yeah, that's
the
why,
only
like,
the only time it's not ranked number 1 is when the Mandalorian and Grogu came out.
So Friday.
Yeah, Friday, May 22nd.
Shocker.
That's the only, but it still shows that it had an increased percentage in ticket sales.
Yeah, dude, the word of mouth on that movie is crazy. Maybe for Halloween we'll talk about it this year.
I really want to see it, so I think we should.
Cool, because I have a lot of thoughts and opinions on it, like going into the story, but I'll save that for another day. Let's get into final ratings for the third time.
All right, you want to go first?
Yeah,
you want to go first?
Dude, I gave this movie fucking 0 stars in my reviews. I understand why Papa Scorsese was third billed, because they couldn't figure out another way to sell this movie.
That's fine.
There's nothing more I feel like I can say to voice my frustration with not only just this movie and this franchise, but just Star Wars. So Star Wars needs a whole makeover, in my opinion.
All right. Shit. I'm trying to think if I should lower this now.
Dude, 2 stars is too high. I'm sorry.
I think it is.
If I were you, I'd probably give it 1.
Yeah, I'm at least gonna dock off half a star. Yeah. Okay, I gave this 1.5 stars. Which for me I think just means like it's really bad. I said this is just season 4 of The Mandalorian condensed into a feature-length film. Which leads to character moments and plot development feeling rushed and very disjointed. Characters come and go with no real purpose or presence, and every scene is vaguely connected to the story they're trying to tell. Anyway, in other words, it was very disappointing.
I hated it. That's what it sounds like. God, Dave Filoni,
bro, dude, you're such a hater.
Dude, I'm sorry, but I am. Everything I've seen hasn't like really interested me, or I can't say interested me, but doesn't make me want to see more of like whatever this side character extended universe is for Star Wars. I don't know.
I don't know. Like I was telling you when we got at the theater, I thought that the season 3 of The Mandalorian was flawed, but it was still like by the end of it, there was enough going on that I was still wanting to see more. Obviously, The Mandalorian and Grogu doesn't continue that, but you know, the Book of Boba Fett is whatever, and I thought Ahsoka was good. I liked it. I'm excited to see more of it. I'm a little more hesitant now about them like culminating in like a movie, like with all of the TV shows tied together, because I'm not really sure how that's gonna work now. Um,
I guess that's kind of my thing. I need to see him be able to connect everything in a better way, because I feel like the translation from animated to live action with the certain characters hasn't been received all that well, or with like a lot of pushback.
yeah, that's fair.
So that's where I'll leave it at. Because I'll watch Ahsoka. I'll make it a point at some time so I can trash on it.
Noise, bro. Fuck you.
No, I'm joking. I'm joking. Leo, what are we watching next week?
All right, next week we are doing an oldie. I think this movie came out in what, the 80s?
If you said the title, maybe I could help.
Oh no, it came out in the late 70s. Interesting. Anyways, Steven Spielberg's coming back with a new movie called Disclosure Day. It's like an alien movie or whatever. So we figured we would look at one of Steven Spielberg's other alien movies, Close Encounters of the Third Kind from 1977.
Is this your first time watching
have
it?
never seen this movie.
Oh my god, bro! I cannot wait to see your first opinion, because it's not the movie I think you're expecting it to be.
I mean, I've seen clips from it. Like I've seen like the car scene or whatever, because I had to watch that.
Yeah, everyone has.
I had to watch that for some film class or whatever. Anyways, but yeah, I'm excited. I've heard good things about this movie. So yeah, and I like Steven Spielberg movies. So,
well, if you have parental trauma, this film is going to be perfect for you.
then I think we'll be good. Anyways, so yeah, before we head out, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, follow us on Spotify or Apple Music. Let us know what you thought of The Mandalorian and Grogu, if you've seen it. Hopefully you didn't listen to all of this without having seen it yet, but
it's not like you could spoil it.
That's fair. But anyways, so yeah, we'll see you guys next time.
Peace.